Okay, now we're going to dive deeply into the world of contracts, especially as they relate to real estate. Let's unravel this together. Have you ever wondered why contracts are so pivotal in the real estate world? Whether you're a broker, a salesperson, or just someone looking to buy or sell property, contracts are the backbone of nearly all significant transactions. And we're now going to explore the broader concepts of contracts. First, let's ask ourselves, what is a contract? Defining contract isn't as straightforward due to its vast applications. For instance, in California's civil code, they see it as an agreement to act or refrain from a particular action. But if we merge various definitions, we get something comprehensive. A contract is a mutual agreement between parties that the law enforces or acknowledges as an obligation. Think of it as a promise that the law backs up. Now, when it comes to classifying contracts, contracts can come in different shapes and sizes. Let's break them down. By creation, you may have heard of an express, or maybe you can think of it as explicit agreement. Here, everything is on the table, terms are clearly stated, be it spoken or written. Otherwise, it might be an implied contract. An implied contract is a little bit trickier. It's when terms are understood by actions and not words. Imagine if you always had a recurring tab somewhere at a local retail shop or a restaurant, and they allowed you to run a bill and pay it later. This would be a form of an implied contract. Another form would be by content of agreement. This is either going to be bilateral or unilateral. Bilateral is a two-way street. Both parties, Yoshi and me, are making promises to each other. For instance, I promise to pay Yoshi in exchange for a service. That's bilateral. Unilateral is where only one party makes a promise, hoping for an action from the other, like offering a reward for a lost item. If someone returns it, they get the reward, and no prior promise is needed. Another classification might be by performance status. This could be either executory or executed. For executory, think of it as in progress. Actions or obligations are still pending from one or both sides. If it's executed, the job is done. All parties have met their obligations. Another classification of contracts is by legal standpoint. And this is where it can be void, voidable, unenforceable, or valid. Let's go through each one. If it's void, then it's not a real contract. They don't stand in court, like an agreement to do something illegal, for instance, would be void. If a contract is voidable on the surface, they seem legitimate, but they can be rejected by one or more parties involved. Think of certain deals made by minors. If you are under the age of legal consent for a contract, then it could be voidable. If it is unenforceable, these are valid contracts, but for some reason they can't be legally acted upon. Maybe too much time has passed since they were made. And if it's valid, this is the gold standard. These contracts have everything in place and are legally binding. To be valid, it is the gold standard. These contracts have everything in place and are legally binding. Well, that was a whirlwind tour of contracts. Remember, these are foundational concepts that apply widely, and they're especially critical in real estate. In our next lesson, we'll delve into the contracts that pop up most frequently in real estate. So stay tuned.
Yoshi, let's begin.
Okay, here are the essential elements of a contract. Under the California Civil Code, the existence of a contract requires parties capable of contracting, mutual consent, lawful object, and sufficient consideration. It may be helpful to add a fifth requirement, which is present only in certain contracts: a proper writing. For a valid contract, there must be two or more parties who have at least limited legal capacity. Generally, everyone is fully capable of contracting except persons who are subject to certain limitations: unemancipated minors, persons of unsound mind, aliens, and persons deprived of civil rights.